Hello and welcome to the Black Hat Bushcraft Channel. I'm Matt Mercer and I appreciate you taking the time to tune in for this video. And this afternoon I'm going to share with you what I think is one of, if not the best, improvised spring pole snare trap. And I've gone ahead and set this trap up for you today so you can see it. And I've used brightly colored paracord. I've used a bright orange and a neon green color paracord. Obviously that would not be my first choice to use with a trap like this. I would use something like wire or bank line, a heavy duty bank line, something earth tone that would blend into the environment. But again, this is for instructional purposes today. So when you see that and you see that snare sticking out, just know it's for visibility for the video, not for actual use. Now, quick disclaimer, keep in mind that anytime we're talking about primitive or improvised traps, those are most likely illegal to use in all 50 of the United States and most other countries around the world as well. So this is simply knowledge that we would have in our toolbox in a worst case scenario, just in case we ever needed that. You would know how to set this up. And most of all, it's fun just to get out here in the woods and practice your skills and just see what's possible. You learn a lot through setting up this type of trap. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at this trap, how it's put together. Let's test it out. Alright, so the first thing I had to do was drive this stake in the ground, and I just took advantage of this forked stick here. And to give it enough staying power, you can see I drove two other stakes in the ground as well and just lashed those together to make sure that this tree doesn't pull that up. And it really took that to make this work. Now, attached to the orange line, which goes up to the tree, I just have a toggle. And then I attach just loop to loop with an overhand loop my snare. And I'll show you the snare up close here in just a few minutes. I just used a couple of little thin branches to hold my snare in place here. And now this is just a balancing act with that forked stick and a toggle. I did flatten the toggle off. If you can see that right here, I flattened this off so it would sit on the top of this stick. And down in the ground, I just put what I call a wooden nickel, but I just cut little 1-inch piece off of a limb and drove it down in the ground there to give me a strong platform for this whole thing to sit on. If not, there's enough force on this toggle pulling up from the tree that it would push this down in this soft ground. So that gives it a solid platform, like an anvil to sit on. And that's basically it. All right, so let's do a reset here so you can see. That thing is a beast to get down here. I have to really lean my body weight into it. Now, there's upward pressure from this cord and the tree pulling up, which makes this end, the toggle, pull down. And it pulls down with quite a bit of force. So what we do is we prop our bait stick in here, just like this, and find that perfect angle where it balances. I'll tell you what, that thing's barely sitting there. Okay, now, it's a very fine balancing act with that. Now we want to position our snare in here. And we just want to easily work that down. Make sure it's far enough in front of our bait stick here. And I just like to put some leaves on our loop like this. Not too much, because I don't want it to foul up the function of the trap, but just enough. This stick needs to be a little higher, but just to get the idea here, okay? And so that feels natural to the animal when he comes in to get that bait. Of course, we would once again cover all this stuff up. All right, so obviously with a trap like this, you always have to funnel and block off the back of this trap, funnel the animal to the area that's optimal to set off this trap. So I'm gonna demonstrate what that looks like here rather than just setting the trap off as it is. I'm gonna set it as if I were really depending upon this trap to get a meal, and we'll take a look at what that looks like. All right, so I've gone ahead and set this trap, and I've gone ahead as well and funneled it. And what I mean by that is I've put all this debris of sticks and leaves, pine straw, stuff like that to help make sure that the animal approaches from the direction I want him to come in. Animals are just like people. They're always going to look for the path of least resistance to get to their target. So I've gone ahead and blocked this trap off heavily in the back with the sticks and debris and left him a nice opening here to get to the bait. We'll take a look at that bait stick. You can see I've carved it into a fork so we can wedge bait down between that fork. We can even tie bait onto this. Think frog guts. You could smear peanut butter, berries, whatever you wanted to use as your bait there, and just to make sure it's attached really well. And for the animal to get to that bait, he's going to be standing in this snare. The snare, which is this neon green paracord, goes all the way around and on the ground and back up here, and some of that is camouflage, and I left a little bit of it visible just so you can kind of see where the snare is. Most animals are going to be front feet into that snare, and his head's going to be in there as well to get to that bait stick. Maybe if he's a larger animal, just his head will be through. But when this sapling goes off, it's pulling straight up. So the snare is going to snap straight up, which is going to cinch around his neck or behind his front two legs, which is also a very solid catch. And this is a strong enough tree that it will lift that animal up off the ground. So whether it's a possum or a raccoon or a rabbit, those types of animals, this tree has enough strength snap to it that it will lift those animals up, which is critical. If they can touch the ground, they're going to find a way out of this trap or chew their way out. But if it cinches them up and lifts them off the ground, it will strangle them fairly quickly. And I know that doesn't sound nice, but we're talking about survival, so we do what we have to do. But you can see what that looks like there, just kind of like a little cubby set. He's going to approach and go straight through our snare and hopefully be caught. Let's take a piece of wood, stick down in there, and see if we can snare it, just see what the function of this trap is. All right, so I just have a maple log here. We're going to use that to simulate our animal, see how this trap functions. The animal goes through the snare. When he pulls on that bait stick, whoa, got him good. You can see what that looks like right there, hanging up off the ground. Exactly what we want. The nice thing about that snare is it will not loosen up. See, attached all the way up to the tree there. All right, so in case you're not familiar with how to improvise a snare out of bank line or paracord, I'm going to show you that now. You just take a bite in your cordage, and with that we're just going to tie an overhand loop. And you can do a double overhand knot there, just pass it back through twice, but essentially we just want a loop at the end of our line. All right, now that I've tied that overhand knot and given myself a loop at the end of the line, I'm going to take that loop and fold it back on itself to make what looks like a little set of ears, and I'm going to fold those down on top of themselves like this. All right, and then that's going to form my lark's head loop. I just take the opposite end of the cordage and run back through both of those ears just like this. So it runs through. Okay, and now once I cinch all that down, that becomes my snare loop. You want to leave this lark's head fairly loose on the line, about like this, because you want it to be able to cinch very quickly. When the trap goes off, you want it to be able to slide down really quick. But the nice thing is, once this thing goes off and it cinches down tight, it stays tight. As you can see there, like it's really tight around my wrist, and even if I wiggle around, it doesn't come loose until I take my hand up here and purposefully loosen it like that. This is the best way I know to make a snare, just a single loop made into a lark's head. And this is how we teach snaring at the Pathfinder School as well. So just a great little way to create a self-tightening and a hitch that stays tight until you purposefully loosen it back up. Now, once you have your snare loop attached, all you have to do now is attach your toggle to this line. And to do that, you only have to create a marlin spike hitch. And that's literally just take a bite in your line and then roll that up the line over top of the line and pull a pocket through. And that little pocket is where you insert your toggle, and you just cinch that down, and that gives you your marlin spike hitch. One of the most useful knots that a woodsman can know, or anybody can know, and one of the most simple. Again, so simple. You just create a bite or a bend in your cordage, roll it up the line, and just pull that main line through, and that loop is where you put your toggle. And now with that, you're ready to set your trap. All you have to do is take the opposite end of this cordage and attach it to your spring pole. You could do that with a clove hitch. You could just tie an overhand loop and run your line through. I mean, you could do that 100 ways to attach it to a tree. That's it. Lark's head, overhand loop, marlin spike, you're ready to trap. Got him good. All right, so I hope you guys have enjoyed taking a look at this spring pole snare trap. It's nothing particularly groundbreaking, but it is an excellent, simple design with just some very basic knots. Doesn't require a whole lot of cordage, and it can catch medium-sized animals for you. The key is just setting it up on a spring pole that's large enough to do the work. If you just get this real thin spring pole that's easy to work with, it's not going to work. But if you get a nice stout spring pole that you got to put your body weight into to bend over and set that trap and make it with hardy components and drive 3 stakes in the ground to hold that tree down, now you've got something that can actually catch an animal. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I hope you'll get a chance to get out in the woods and practice. Make sure you don't forget and leave those traps set up. It is illegal, to the best of my knowledge, in all 50 states and probably most other countries in the world to trap primitively like this. So this is just tools for the toolbox up here that you'll have if you ever needed it. It's good to have all the knowledge that you can get about the world around you and ways you can provide for yourself in an emergency. So this is emergency knowledge. Thank you guys. I appreciate your interest and support. Don't forget to check me out on Instagram at Black Hat Bushcraft. Also at Facebook. I post on those platforms almost daily. If you're not following me there, you're definitely missing some content. Make sure to subscribe to the channel down below. I really appreciate it. Don't give me a thumbs down, give me a thumbs up. All right, I appreciate you guys. Y'all take care, be safe, and until the next one, God bless.